So I wanted to do a video review of the Evolution Rainfly that I got. And I did write a review on Amazon about it. First, I'll tell you things about it that I really liked a lot. It was bigger but lighter than my Aqua Quest tarp, which I love. My Aqua Quest tarp. I always call it my Aqua Nest, but it's Aqua Quest, which I also bought from Amazon. I absolutely love it. It's a 10 by 10, the Aqua Quest. But I have an 11-foot hammock, and even with hanging the hammock with it sagging down, I always felt like I'd like an extra foot of coverage for the rain. In nice weather, I loved it. I had used it a couple times and got stuck in rainstorms, and the Aqua Quest is bulletproof, 100% waterproof tarp. I don't remember if it was seam taped and I sealed the seams myself or if it came that way. I really don't remember. But I loved it. But I wanted an extra foot or two of coverage, and I wanted something a little lighter. So I found the Evolution tarp, and price was right, so I bought it. And so things that I liked about it right from the start was that it was longer in the ridgeline. It was lighter than the Aqua Quest. And I liked the cord system that came with it too. It was thin, but it was paracord, but just a thin diameter of paracord. And so all the way around, I just was really happy with it, with the exception of a couple of things. I don't like the fact that they put grommets in the corners and webbing loops. I would rather just webbing loops, because I think putting grommets in the corners weakens the corner and it allows rain in. The other thing I didn't like is all the tie-out points, the four corners and the two ridgeline points. They are reinforced, but they put a seam across it, and that is not taped. So in the corners it doesn't really matter, but in the ridge line they have this reinforcement material in there that they've sewed in, which is great, but it's bad because they don't seam seal those corners, and I'll show you what I mean. So in my opinion, this grommet is useless and does nothing but weaken the corner. And you see this seam right here? This is not taped. So, but it's in the corner, so it doesn't really matter that much. But here in the ridge line, okay, I'll show you from underneath, they put this material in for extra protection, but it is not sealed. So this distance here, this is probably 4 to 6 inches worth of area where water can drip down right onto your hammock line, your hammock suspension. So that is a manufacturing defect as far as I'm concerned. Very poor design. It should be seam sealed. Okay, so the first Evolution Rainfly that I got, thankfully the weather we had was all good weather. When I hung it, I liked the color, I liked how it hung. Wasn't sure that I liked that the end edges they're cut in an angle, but I understand why they do that because it saves weight. Kind of wish it was just a truly rectangle, but it's not. But it's okay. Because I feel like, especially at the ridge, when it cuts in, you're losing some rain coverage, and rain could blow in at an angle and it's going to get you wet. Whereas if it was a true rectangle, it could blow in and not not get you wet. I feel like those angle cuts on the ridge line are only good for rain coming straight down, but that's just my thinking, okay? And my experience of using a rectangle in like really hard rain. But anyway, going back to the review. I was really thrilled when I got up the next morning after it hanging overnight, and I did not have to tighten any guidelines. I didn't have to tighten my ridgeline. I didn't have to tighten my guidelines. There was no sag in either the lines or the tarp. I was like, wow, this is impressive. And we camped out for 4 days, and in those 4 days, I did not have to tighten that tarp or those guidelines one time. I was amazed because my AquaQuest and the guidelines that came with it, as much as I love it, it sags. And every morning, got to get up and tighten it up. So, I was really happy with that. But it was good weather that whole time. And we got ready to do an Appalachian Trail hike. And one of the nights there was supposed to be rain. And I said, you know what? I really need to hang this tarp in the yard during a thunderstorm and test it out and make sure that it is watertight. Well, thank God that I did that, because I hung it up and it rained, and it was about raining for 5 hours, maybe 4 hours. I don't even think it was a full 5 hours. I think it was raining 4 hours, and it was a good heavy rain. But I came outside to check my tarp, and I was like, oh my God. It was leaking through, it wasn't leaking through the ridge line, it was leaking through the fabric. The fabric itself, water was just coming through the fabric. Everything underneath the tarp was wet. And I'm sitting there, and I did take a couple pictures. I didn't do any videos. I did do a couple pictures. I'm not sure if I still have them. Let me stop here and I'll see if I have them, I'll include them. So the water's coming straight through the fabric. I couldn't believe it. I was devastated because I really liked the tarp a lot. And I thought, oh God, how many people are buying this tarp and they're going out and they're going to get drenched. So I did contact the company. I bought it on Amazon, so I contacted the company through Amazon because it was the only way I had to contact them. And it was way, way, way past my time to return it, because I had it for a while and we didn't use it and it just sat. It was way past time to do any kind of return or refund or anything. But I told them what happened, and customer service contacted me back within 24 hours. And regardless of what the product is and how it functions, their customer service was, I could give you 5 stars for the customer service. It was incredible. They emailed me back, they apologized, and they said they were so sorry, and it must have just got through quality control and that they were going to see to it, but they want to send me another tarp. And I don't have to return the old tarp. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. They're going to send me a new one, and they're not going to charge me, and I don't even have to send back the old one. That's pretty awesome, you know, because the old one's great for sunny weather. It's just not going to help you if it's raining. So I emailed them back and I thanked them, and I said, just send the tarp. You don't have to send the guidelines and the stakes and the little survival compass bracelet thingy, because it was pretty worthless anyway. I said, you don't have to send all that other stuff. Just send just the tarp. And they said, okay, and they asked for my address. I gave it to them. And within 10 days, I had, oh, and they asked me what color I wanted. And the color I originally ordered was now discontinued. I didn't really like any of the other colors that they had. But I told them, I did pick out a color, even though I didn't like it. And I told them what I was looking for. I really wanted like something camo. But they said, okay. And 10 days later, within 10 days, I had a tarp replacement. Now, here's the thing though. They didn't just send the tarp, they sent the whole kit. So they sent the guy lines and the stakes and the silly little survival bracelet, which is totally worthless. Because the compass doesn't point to north, and the ferro rod included in it doesn't make sparks, and it broke, and it was just but it's got some paracord in it, which might come in handy. But they sent me a new tarp. Now here's the funny thing about the replacement tarp, and this is what prompted me to do a review. So the replacement tarp they sent me is actually not the color that they offered me. It is actually a camo. So I was really thrilled with that. I opened up the box and I went, oh look, it's camo. Not something gray or weird with white and green on it. This is actually a nice camo. So I was really happy when I saw that they sent the whole kit. Again, I was like, wow, this is great. So now I have extra guy lines, I have extra stakes. So this is really good. I was like A+ on the customer service. But this is what I noticed about the new tarp. Number one, I set this up about 3 hours ago and had it perfectly tight, and now if you look at it, it is not perfectly tight. It is sagging. Whether it's the tarp or the guy lines, I don't really know for sure, but I think it's the guy lines. These guy lines that came with this one are not the same quality that it came with the other one. These, besides being just really slippery, stretch. When I tied them up around the tree and pulled on it, they stretched. You could see and feel these lines stretch. I can't really hold the phone and pull on it with one hand and show you, but the guy lines on this one are terrible. They're not like the other one. These guy lines stretch. And this was going straight across when I first hung this. And that was like maybe 3 hours ago. And in 3 hours, it has sagged down a lot. Okay? The other thing, of course, like the other one, it wasn't seam sealed on the ends. And I'm not going to seam seal this one because in case they say they're not happy with what I have to say about it, they want it back, I'm not going to do anything to it. So one of the things that I noticed too on this one, some of the stitching is a little shoddy. So there was, I think it's maybe on the other end, there was a spot where they missed the fabric a little bit. So if you look at some of the stitching here, it's a little loose, and it looks like it was sewn twice and kind of crooked. Yeah, the sewing quality on this one doesn't seem as good as the first one. I don't know if you can see that, but there's an area right here where they actually missed the fabric. They missed the black fabric. I don't know if you can see that. So the sewing quality on this one I think is not as good. The ridgeline is seam sealed. Of course, again, I want to reiterate that this part is not. So it's the part where water's going to creep in. I also feel like the grommets are worthless. They just weaken, and also an area where water just can pour in through here. Okay, I think the grommets are just a bad idea, especially on the ridgeline. So the replacement tarp, while I love the color, the guy lines are awful. They stretch. I don't know if it was the guy lines or the tarp itself, but you saw how the ridgeline was sagged. I guess I should have videotaped while it was tight to prove that, but I didn't, okay? And I've got it hung outside. We had a light drizzle for just a few minutes. Nothing dripped in, but it's supposed to thunderstorm over the next couple days, and I'm leaving it hung up outside to see whether or not if we have the same problem with the water seeping through the actual fabric. This fabric does feel different than the first one. It does feel a little different. So maybe the other one did somehow miss getting a coating or something on it. I have really no idea. There's some loose threads on this one, which I didn't notice on the first one. So we're just gonna leave this outside, and we'll see if it leaks. And hopefully it won't, because I need it. I need it in a couple weeks. I'm going to be needing it. And the water is beating up on it and rolling off the little sprinkle that we had, but it does look like some spots, it does look like it's kind of seeping through. But it's not wet on the other side, so we just got to wait and see. Alright, and after all the rain, I'll videotape whether or not it leaked and finalize my review. But these are my thoughts so far. The last thing I wanted to mention was that, and this wasn't a problem with the first one, it was only a problem with the second one, that the knots tied in the guy lines by the little plastic tensioners were just little single knots, and they pulled right through the tensioners. While it's not a problem for somebody like me who's used to setting things up and using tensioners, for a first-time person setting this up, you know, he might set it up, he or she may set it up, and in the middle of the night those things might pull out. The knots that they tied just pulled right through the tensioners. I mean, pulled right through. They definitely needed bigger knots or thicker rope or tensioners with smaller holes. They pulled right through. And so you wouldn't want those failing in the middle of the night, you know, and have your tarp come crashing down around you and scare the dickens out of you. The other thing, and this is kind of a silly thing too, but it just makes me think of what else is slipping through quality control, is the paracord tied onto the ends of the stakes. The paracord tied on the ends of the stakes was a nice paracord, but it wasn't even tied on. There were just little pieces that were looped through the holes on the ends of the stakes and just not even tied on. And the two that were tied on, they were tied on so loosely that when I picked the stakes up and carried them, the loops just fell right off. So what else is getting done half, I don't want to say the A word, not being done precisely, correctly, and completely? And what else is sneaking through quality control? That's my question. If you can't get something right, like a tiny little knot on a tiny little tensioner, or tying on a little loop of paracord on the end of a stake, you can't get those simple things right, what else are you messing up? Okay, so customer service, great. Quality control, not so much. Actual product, well, the first one was a fail. Let's see what happens with the second one. Okay, so here's the rain test. I hung my tarp up yesterday afternoon. It rained all night long. It rained pretty heavy, and there was some wind and stuff, so I want to take that into consideration. But let's show you what happened. So this is how I had the tarp sit up. And like I said, there was some winds, and because I knew there was going to be high winds, I did use bungees so that it wouldn't tear the tarp up. The bungees help it give a little bit. That could explain some of the water being under the tarp, but not all of it. But let's take a look. It's still raining right now, but it's not raining heavy. It's sprinkling. I don't see water seeping in anywhere. This is a little wet feeling up here, but I don't feel any water actually seeping in. I don't see any water seeping in. Like the other tarp, you can see it dripping right from the fabric up. There's that there. Yep, there are some drips on the inside of the hammock up in here coming through. So where the tarp is a little flatter and the water sitting on it, it looks like the water is coming through. It's not dripping through really bad like the other one was, but it definitely is coming through. So this chair is fully under the tarp, and yet it's wet. Same thing with this table. It is under the tarp, and yet it's wet. Now this, because it's low to the ground, it could be some rain. Got blown in by the wind. But this one is definitely wet. This is what's the most concerning thing. See, now I had it pretty low on this side, sloped down low. And I want to show you this. The hammock is soaked. Okay. And this is under the tarp. You can see water build up there. That's water. But you can tell by the color here, this hammock got soaked. And being under here, this was low on this side, so no wind, which should have brought, blown in any rain on this side. And this is, yeah, so my hammock is soaked. I'm glad I didn't sleep in this last night. And this side here is totally drenched. Look at how wet this is. Look at this. You see water pulled up right there in the hammock. It's not creeping down because it's dry, soaking wet. It's dry up there. It's soaking wet. So these tarps are nice and light, but I won't use them because I cannot confirm that they won't leak. There's definitely some water getting through. So that's my take on it. So I decided to do another rain test of the tarp, because even though my last clip ended with me saying I wasn't sure that I could recommend it as being waterproof, the areas that felt damp underneath, or even that one little drop, I saw one little drop on the underside of the tarp. I'm wondering if wind blew it in. So I hung it last night because we were going to have a storm last night. So I hung it up before the storm started. And when I got up this morning and came out to check everything underneath it, this is what I found. It fell down. Now here's the funny thing. I still use the bungees because it's supposed to be really windy too. All the bungees are still attached. Everything is still attached. It filled up with water on that corner, and the weight of it pulled it down. So I say to myself, well, if it filled up with water, it must be waterproof. And I'm looking under here. Now, there is water drips along this ridge line. I just touched it, and it is definitely wet on the underside. Now, yeah, there's definitely water that came through. I don't know if you could see the water drops on my hand. Now, I don't think it ran down this way. Yep, it's definitely water has come through the ridge line. I really wanted this tarp to work. I really did. Notice the stuff underneath here though is dry, but there are a couple of drips. There are a couple drips. The chair is dry, but I'm running my hand on the ridge line and I can feel wet spots. There is some wetness there that was totally covered by the tarp. There's a big pile of a big wet spot there. What a bummer. So I'm very sad because I really, really, really wanted this tarp to work out. But this, while it didn't leak like crazy like the first one did, you are getting some water droplets coming through. So yeah, I have to say this is not 100% waterproof. I'm really sad too, because I like the tarp and I really wanted it to work out. But I am just not gonna be able to trust this tarp. I can't take this out when there's any possible chance of rain, because I'm afraid I'm gonna get wet. Tarp for beautiful weather, absolutely. It's a great tarp for beautiful weather, but if there is any chance that you're gonna get rained on, listen, maybe a light sprinkle, it'll be okay, but if you're gonna get showers really bad, or you're doing something like the Appalachian Trail where you never know what's gonna happen, you know, because of elevations or whatever, I just feel like I can't trust this tarp. I'm sorry, Evolution people, I really wanted to trust this tarp, but it's just not 100% foolproof, waterproof. Step up your game, people, because you're on the right track.